Hello. So today I'm going to show you how to do brick stitch earrings. But with this brick stitch, there's two techniques of beading that I'll be using. And the reason why is because I need to make a foundation and then I'll do the brick stitch. And I'll explain that in a second here. So this is the earring that I'm going to be working on. However, when I made this earring, I was doing really good up until I came to this section here. Now, what happened was I was rolling along smoothly and I forgot to add 2 black beads. So I figured what a good time to show how to do brick stitch earrings. This example, what I'm going to do is, it's 7 beads across. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 3 beads high are the first row. 1, 2, 3. So it's a total of 21 beads. After the 3 rows, this will be the first row, second row, third row. Once we get up to the 4th row, that's where the brick stitch will start. And from 7 beads, it goes down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 beads. Then to the 5th row, 5 beads, 6th row, 4 beads, and then the 7th row, 3 beads, and then the last section, just 2 beads of each row. So let's begin. So for the first row, I'm going to pick up, let's see here, 1, 2, 7 beads. I'm going to pick up 2 red ones, 3 orange, and 2 red ones. Okay, so I got my first row that I want, the number of beads. So I got 2 red, 3 orange, and 2 red. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my needle and thread and just go through this bead right here. Now I'm just going to go through the second bead to create a loop. What's going to happen is the bead is going to lie flat like that. Now I'm going to take my needle and thread and see how these 2 beads are lying like this? I want to take my needle and come around this bead here, just through the orange bead, pull it through, just like that, just through the orange, and come out through the other side. So what's going to happen is the beads are going to start forming the straight row. So I'm just going to keep going back and forth. This next bead, see where the thread comes out of? I want to go through that orange bead again, or not go through the next orange bead, just 1 bead at a time. So I'm weaving my thread in and out, and give the thread a little tug, and you'll notice the beads are starting to kind of form a row I should say. Now I'm going to keep going, and keep in mind where the thread is. I'm going to take my needle and thread and go around to over here and go through that bead. So this is creating the first row. And come around and go through this next red bead. Yep, just like that. And now go through this bead here. There we go. Now that's the first row, and you know they're not they're not lying too straight, but that's okay because once we start adding the other beads on, they'll start to get into how I want the beads to lie. So, and mind you, these are different sized beads too, so it kind of makes it difficult. Now, what I want to do is I want to grab 2 beads for this section here. So I'm going to grab, now I'm just following this pattern here that I got. So for this one here, I'm going to grab, now it looks like you could see this thread. Now that's just because the angle that the camera is situated. When it's held up, you can't really see the thread. It's not that bad. So now back to what I was doing here. So I'm going to grab a red and an orange. A red and an orange. And for the first, this is the second row. I'm going to go through the second bead here. Pull my thread through. And give that a tug. There. So it doesn't look like much right now, but it'll improve as you go along. So now what I'm going to do is, actually I'm going to go back around this because this is the beginning of the thread. And this will reinforce it a little bit. Now I'm only using a single thread. So what I'm doing is I'm just going back through the first 4 beads just to reinforce the stitch. There we go. Now I'm going to go back up through this orange one. There we go. And I want to grab another orange bead. And I'm going to go back through this, just a single orange one. There we go. Tug on it a little bit. Now I'm going to go back up through the orange bead here. There we go. And now I got my 2 red, 2 orange. Okay, now we're on this row here. So I got 1 red, 2 orange. Now I want a center yellow. So for this one here, I am going to go through that middle orange bead. Give it a little tug. And go back up through this orange bead here so you could see what I'm doing. So it looks kind of messy, but as we get going, the beads will start to fall into place. Now I'm going to grab an orange bead and go through this yellow one here. Now I'm just going to go back up through this orange and you can see they're starting to fall into shape here, fall into place. Now I'm going to grab another orange bead, put another orange bead on, go through this red one, and go back up through this red one over here and grab 1 red bead. Then I'm going to go through just the orange one and back up through the red. And there. So the base foundation is starting to take shape. Now I'm going to go to the next third row. So the third row calls for 2 orange. So I'm going to grab 2 orange and go through just the second orange bead. There we go. Now I'm just going to go back up through this bead here. And now I want a yellow. So I'm just going to grab 1 yellow bead, go through this orange one, go back to the orange one, pull the needle through, and go back up through this yellow, and now I want a red bead. I'm just going to go through the yellow bead and back up through the orange bead. Now I'm going to grab another yellow, just pull it through the red and go back up through the yellow bead. And now I'm going to grab another orange bead, go through this orange, and go up back through the, nope, go back through the red one here. So I just rotated my work. By me turning my work like this, it doesn't change how the pattern's going to come out. Okay, now I'm going to grab another orange bead, go through there, and go back up here. That's the foundation of the beadwork. Now there's 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, and 7 columns of beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 21 beads. So now I'm going to carry on and start doing the brick stitch. Now whenever you start a row of the brick stitch, you want to pick up 2. And if you look, see these 2 loops of thread? There's this loop here, and then there's this other loop right here. That's the loop I want to go through. So now in keeping with the pattern that I want to do, I want to pick up a yellow and an orange, or orange and a yellow. So I'm going to pick up 2. This is the first row of the brick stitch that we're going to be doing. Now I picked up a yellow and an orange. Move my string out of the way, and I'm not going to go through this loop, I'm going to go through this second loop. Put my needle through, just like that. I'm not going through any beads at this point, I'm just going underneath the string. Pull it through, and now for this part, I'm going to take my needle and go back up through the yellow bead. Now on this section here, I'm going to gently tug it. I'm not going to pull it. I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to force them into place because they'll naturally fall into place. Now this bead will stick up a little bit. That's okay, because as I add more beads to this, you'll start to see the brick stitch developing. So now the next bead I want to add is a red one. And I'm only adding one bead this time. And I'm going to go through this section, right, this next loop, underneath, putting my needle underneath the thread, pulling it through, and then I'm going to take my needle and put it through the red bead Try not to go through the string because it weakens it with your needle, and just pull it through. Now I don't want to pull on it, because what happens if I pull on the string too tight, it's going to create a warp or like a bow within the beads. Okay, now in keeping with my pattern, I'm going to grab another red bead, and I'm just going to go through, I'll go underneath the thread, pull it through, and go up through the red bead, and just gently tug on it. Now as you can see, the beads are starting to fall into place, create that brick stitch pattern of the first row. This bead here sticking up, don't worry about it, because once I get the next row on, it'll put it where it should be. So now I need a yellow bead. Now I'm going to go through this underneath that thread, pull it through, and up through the yellow, up through the bottom of the bead, and pull it. See how the thread has looped underneath it? That's what we want. Then you pull it, and then it locks it into place. Now I need to grab another orange bead, go underneath the thread, and pull it through, and go up, go underneath the bead through, and pull it. And like I said, I'm not worried about that because it'll fall into place once I start the next row. Now I'm just going to flip my work and do the next row. So now I need, for the next row, I need a yellow. Okay, whenever you're starting the next row, remember you always need to grab 2 beads. So for the 2 beads, I need a yellow and a red one. So I'm going to not go through that one. I'm going to go through the second thread, underneath the second thread. Pull it through, and then I'm just going to go underneath the red bead, pull my needle through, and see how the thread loops is underneath there. Now if I pull it gently, you'll see how it's looped underneath that thread. That's what you want. That's brick stitch beading. Now there we go. Now I need, the center is orange. Now you don't want to pull on your string too hard because it'll create that warp, remember? So let's go back to the red one. Now I want a yellow one. And that's okay like that. The orange beads are a little bit fatter than, they seem a little bit more fatter. And there you go. See how that bead kind of pushed that down? Well, that's okay. I'm not worried about that. Because once you get the beads all in place, that'll be hardly noticeable. So now what I want is a yellow and a red one. So because this is the first row, I want to start off with 2 beads, and remember to skip that first thread and go into the second one. And just gently pull on it. I don't want to reef on it because it will be too, just make it all misshapen. You want that nice triangle line, diamond shaped line, straight lines. You want the beads to be nice, in a nice order, a nice brick stitch where it makes those triangles or diamond shapes. Now I want a yellow one. Do you see where it goes? Yeah, just like that. It just locks it into place. Now I'm going to flip my work because it's just starting to easier to hold on to. Now I need 2 yellow. No, I don't. I need 1 yellow and 1 red. 1 yellow and 1 red. Even though now we're on the last row and there's only 3 beads, I still need to always start each row with 2 beads. And now I'm on to the last yellow here. Sometimes you just need to change the angle of your work to get the thread and needle through. And so now it looks like you could see the thread, and you can, but just remember that I have the camera up really close so you can see everything. When the earrings are completed, the thread isn't as visible. So now I'm on the last where I just need the 2 yellow. So I just need, now this is from, no, I'll just keep the thread on this side. So now I always skip the first one and go into the second one. And just because there's 2 left, I'm still going to go through the second one, up through the second one. And there's the foundation. Now what I'm going to do is grab 4 beads, 4 yellow beads, 1, 2, 3, 4 yellow beads, and I'm going to go through this bead here. Try not to go through the thread. Pull it through, and I'm going to go through these 6 beads a couple of times, loop around a couple of times with the thread. This will just reinforce this section for when you add the hook, the fish hook earring. There, so I'm happy with that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start creating the dangles. So I'm going to go, just take my needle and thread, and we go straight down all the way here. Go through there. Go through all the beads on that side. There we go. There. Now what I find helps me to do this section is to create these nice little fringes is when if I lay my work on a flat piece. So now I'm going to keep with this pattern here. So for this dangle, okay, this one here. So if you can see the 2 red beads, that's part of the main body of the work. From the black on this first dangle or fringe is the color of beads, the pattern of beads that I'm going to be doing. So this is an orange color. This is too yellow, too orange. It's kind of hard to tell in the video, but so let's get started with the fringe. Okay, so I got my first fringe on the string here. Now, this is the tail. This string here is the tail. I'm just going to keep it on and just kind of work around it. So now I'm going to create the bottom of the fringe by going up to the 3rd bead, or skipping these 3 black beads and going straight back up through this row of beads and up towards, see where my needle is? Now what I want to do is go through those 2 red beads, pull it through, hang on to my work, and just gently pull it through. Now this is where you don't want to just pull on the thread and make it tight, because you want it to be nice and loose. So I'm just hanging on to the bottom 3 beads, pulling it, and just gently pulling it, not too tight and not too hard. The more you bead, the better feel you get for the string and the beads and how tight you should be pulling and where you should be pulling it. So I pulled it a little bit tighter. See how stiff that is? Yeah, I don't like that. So you just want a nice, like a fringe where it's nice and dangly. So I'm just going to gently tug it back, kind of negotiate with it where I want it to go. See, now I'm liking that a little bit better. Okay, so now we're on the 2nd fringe, and where I'm increasing is at the yellow at the bottom. So there's 3 here, there's 5 there. So now I'm just going to go back up through the yellow, all the way up through this here. If it will let me, without breaking it. Okay, I made it through. Okay, so now I'm just going to lay this down, and I'm going to grab onto the bottom 3 beads and just pull it. Gently pull it till I get where I want the beads to hang. Now I want them to be a little bit straighter than that. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to go back through this orange one, back through these 2 beads. Okay, now we're on to the 3rd fringe, and I'm increasing by 7, or by 2. So there's 3, 5, and there's 7 on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. And everything checks out. So I'm going to just put my thread through there. Pull my needle all the way through. And there we go. Now, there you go. So there. Now I'm going to go back down through this one. Pull it through. Okay, now I'm on to the middle fringe, and this section should have 9 yellow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yellow. Make sure everything checks out. Go through the bottom. And go up like this. Pull it through. There we go. It's coming. Now we're going to start decreasing. Okay, now we're on to the 5th fringe. I'm just going to keep on going here. Go all the way up through the beads. And just gently tug that. Now, go down through this one here. Okay, so now we're on the 5th fringe. Let's see, get you into camera view here. Now we're on the 5th fringe. And I'm just going to go back up through here. And pull my thread and needle through. And And now we're on to the last fringe, and I'm going to go up to all the way through. And to finish it off, all I'm going to do is just weave in and out of the beads. And I'll show you how. There's really no method or madness that I've done, but what I found is if I weave in and out a few times through the same spot where it gets a little bit more thicker to pull the thread through, that would be a best spot to cut it, because there's less likely of a chance for the thread to come out. Now the reason why I'm going back around over here is because I noticed there's a little bit of space. So in the beginning when I started this, the thread wasn't tight. So sometimes that can't be avoided. So what I'm just going to do is, just to make it a little tighter, is just to take my thread and my finishing thread and just go through, if it'll let me. Yep. And try not to get too hooked up on the fringes. There we go. And I'm just going to weave through here and there. Finish it off. Oops, I didn't want to end up in the brick stitch part, but and just go back down, and I think here's a good spot to cut it off. There we go. I'm just going to take the thread, pull it, and cut it. Now for the tail, all I'm going to do is thread it here. And just pull it through this here, this fringe. And just cut it off, the tail, at the bottom of that fringe. There. And there you go. That is how to make brick stitch earrings. Just going to show it. And there you go. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching and for subscribing. You have a good night. Thank you. Bye.